I want to turn to technology now because Bloomberg News is reporting that Attorney General Jeff Sessions is open to probing social media companies. Sessions will be briefed at the end of the month by state Republican attorneys general who have been examining the technology giants. Joining us now, Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
So what, if anything, could be the risks for social media companies in the way of regulation?
The risk is that the federal government's going to be tampering with the freedom of speech. I mean, the social media companies, and I know I'm sitting next to not only a physician, but
by the way, they're tampering with freedom of speech themselves, aren't they?
Who?
The social media companies.
They're not restrained by the First Amendment. They can do that. You know, I can walk into Whole Foods and Jeff Bezos can say, you can't express any political opinion in here. And he can do that because it's a private entity. But the government can't stop me from expressing a political opinion on the street outside of Whole Foods. Stated differently, the government can't interfere with the way the social media folks engage in freedom of speech. But the argument is that they're engaging in fraud, that the algorithms are not truthfully or accurately producing what they are represented as producing. So the right thing to do would be to root out the fraud. But the danger is that it might impair the First Amendment in the process. Think of social media as a bulletin board. They own the bulletin board. They can put what they want up there. If you don't like what's up there, go look at another bulletin board. I know that's easier said than done. The barriers to entry are extraordinary.
No, but this is
you can't build another Google overnight. This is an important point
to examine because let's say, I mean, for a long time we didn't think of these companies as media companies. Right. So are they looked at differently today than we looked at them when they first came on, you know, the scene? Because today, a lot of people get their news from places like Twitter, from places like Apple News. And so I mean, are they tampering with free speech? I go back to the first thing I said.
Yes, that was a great question that you asked, and that is the danger of the potential tampering of freedom of speech. And if they can do this to Google, can they do it to the New York Times?
No,
can
I'm talking about the social media companies. They're tampering because if they are censoring conservative voices, isn't that the same thing? Aren't they tampering with free speech?
But
what do you have to say?
The First Amendment only restrains the government. It does not restrain private entities from tampering with freedom of speech. Look, what they did to Alex Jones was reprehensible. I'm not going to defend Alex Jones. Right. They went after him because they don't like his politics. It had nothing to do with his personality. But they can do that because they're not the government.
So the issue here, I think both of you are correct here. You're just talking about a slightly different point. The liabilities that come up if Facebook, let's say, becomes a publisher. If they're a publisher as opposed to a platform, a publisher has a liability to say if they're catering content and that content comes out to be fraudulent, they're responsible for it. Right now, they're saying if someone posts something, we don't control it, we're hands off. So we're not liable for this. Well, but if they're going to be controlling the content and censoring content, they're now a publisher just like Fox News is.
And I think they are a publisher.
And because they're a publisher, they are protected by the First Amendment from interference with the government. Just as you and I can express just one side of a political opinion on this Fox Business platform, Facebook can say, as reprehensible as it says, no conservatives, no libertarians, no progressives. They can do that. The theory is that if they do that enough, somebody else will start another platform that will be available to those that Facebook has blocked.
Yeah. Okay, but so there is a competitive threat, we hope, but the truth is that social media companies have gotten more protection that this network does not enjoy, that newspapers do not enjoy. This is the 1990s law known as Section 230, and I think, unfortunately, judges have interpreted it so broadly as kind of an all-purpose liability shield. What it was intended to do was not make them liable for stuff users put on the bulletin board, but now that they are controlling that bulletin board, they're deciding.
So many people get their news from these platforms.
They are basically acting as a traditional publisher. I'm wondering, do you see maybe the bigger threat than Jeff Sessions is judges starting to revisit that law and say, you know what, this really, Congress never intended this to be an all-purpose shield for companies, even if they decide to go into the editing business.
That's a very good and very impressive analysis. My fear is anything that anybody in the government would do, the legislative branch, the Congress, the executive branch, the Attorney General, and the DOJ, the judicial branch, the courts, that would interfere with the freedom of speech, because the First Amendment keeps the government out of the business of deciding what we're going to listen to and what we're going to see and what we're going to consume. Those are individual choices. If the publisher doesn't want to put on his bulletin board Alex Jones or Morgan Ortegas, sorry to put you in that same category. That is the publisher's free choice, and it cannot be interfered with by the government.
But what can so Jeff Sessions is reportedly meeting with many state attorney generals. So what can be done at the state level versus the federal level? What's the point of meeting with state AGs?
Because most of these consumer protection, goes back to what Dr. Mike said, most of these consumer protection laws are state laws. Now, I'm going to suggest that the purpose of the meeting is either for PR purposes or to coordinate so that the Justice Department doesn't step on the toes of what the state attorneys general are doing. But there are far more consumer protection prosecutions at the state level than there are at the federal level, because the federal level has a bunch of hoops through which the person being investigated has to go through before he can be subject to investigation.
The Center for Immigration Studies says that it's being censored by Twitter. So the group tweeted this yesterday. Twitter is not allowing us to promote any tweets, including the phrase illegal aliens, citing it as hateful content. However, the phrase illegal aliens has been used in both federal law and by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Does this violate the First Amendment?
No. Only the government can violate the First Amendment. Only the government is restrained by the First Amendment. As reprehensible as it is for Google or Facebook to engage in thought police, they want you to say undocumented worker instead of illegal alien. Whoever you quoted in that
hateful speech?
Whoever you quoted in that in the question you just put to me is 100% correct. The Supreme Court has used illegal alien. It's been a part of our culture for generations. Suddenly to say that a person who uses it can't have not only the phrase but whatever else they've written posted is reprehensible, but not unconstitutional.
Arizona State Attorney General reportedly investigating Google's location privacy practices. This is according to the Washington Post. And we want to show you this tweet from Kevin McCarthy. This is the majority leader. He came out with a tweet yesterday, and he says Google claims to be fair, but gave a silent donation to a left-wing group to stop Trump. Google works with China and Russia to censor the internet, but it canceled the contract with our military. Google ignores Senate hearing. It is time for Google to answer some questions.
It is not time for Google to answer.
An invitation will be on its way, says the majority leader.
It is not time for Google to answer questions. Google is not the government. It doesn't have a duty to the Congress to explain or justify its behavior.
Don't you think it's time they answered questions to customers?
Yes.
And in terms of bias, in terms of reassuring that they will be an honest broker and that these are neutral algorithms that people design.
Let's not forget during the California primary, Judge, during the California primary, you Googled GOP ideologies, and what did you get back? A list of ideologies. The number one was Nazism.
Right.
How about answering that question?
The government can't force a question like that to be answered. The government is not in the business, according to the First Amendment and the Supreme Court's interpretation of it, of cleansing the airwaves of this type of behavior.
So you don't think these
shareholders,
companies have any
stockholders,
impact,
consumers, and investors
you don't see anything negative happening to these companies, then?
I do, because the government is not going to follow what I'm telling them the law is. They'll get. Why do you think Jeff Sessions is there? Because he wants to keep his job. Because his boss hates these entities.
All right, Judge. Good to see you. Thank you, Andrew Napolitano.